Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us on Glutathione Authority. I am Harmony Woodington, and this is Alan Ogden.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Yeah,
good evening to you, and good evening to everybody out there. Thank you so much for joining us. We'd really like to start this evening by telling you a little bit about our story and how we ended up where we are in the first place. I know there's a number of new people who are continuing to join us each time that we do our live events as a result of the amazing True Keto. Is the True Keto up there? Hey, cameraman, do we have a True Keto? We actually got the True Keto in, so we might want to represent. So we'll just throw that up there. Take that down there. That doesn't need to be there. So, my wonderful story about what it is that intrigued me and how I met Alan Ogden in the first place was I had a concussion. And I know a lot of you guys know that, but for those of you who are new, I ended up in a serious car accident October 12th, 2012. Or was it October 8th? Oh my God, this is how you know I have a brain injury, you guys. It was the 18th, or I don't know, somewhere in October. So I was in pain for about a year and a half, struggling with serious symptoms. And I went on a journey to try to discover what it was that I needed to get better naturally, because the drugs and stuff weren't doing it. So I went for my grandfather's birthday on the island and ended up at a health show, and a particular guy was yelling, protein, protein. And Scott, my boyfriend, he went running to the guy, and because, you know, anything to do with protein, men typically are like, and they go and they want to know. So I had that and then did some research on it and realized that that was actually the beginning of the answer to my concussion. And then 3 weeks later, I was invited to an event where Alan was speaking, and Ryan Lewis was speaking, and some other wonderful people were there. And so I got to listen to Alan speak for the first time. And I saw the sciencey side of him, but he was talking about some other stuff that led me to believe that he had an understanding that was deeper than what your typical medical person would, somebody in the medical industry. They usually tend to talk in the same way as a result of their education, but there was something unique about Alan. And we were all heading back on the ferry to the mainland, and I remember everybody hugging it out at the end to say goodbye to each other, and Alan came in for a hug, and I was like, scientists don't do that. There's something going on with this guy. So I decided that I was going to get to know him, and it turns out that not only is he a highly educated pharmacologist, which is different than a pharmacist, because pharmacists have a lot of knowledge, don't get me wrong, but pharmacologists were really educated in understanding how the body works and really developing the medicine from the plants for each individual person that would come in. So they're formulators, they're researchers. They have an understanding of the body that's above and beyond what your average pharmacist would. And then he's got nutritional degrees as well. So there's a lot of knowledge there. And then, of course, an energy medicine degree, which really sets him apart because he has this deep understanding of not just the physical body, but plants and medicine, natural medicine, and then on top of that, the energy body and the needs that it has as well. So it's this really amazing, holistic understanding of health and wellness. So I feel incredibly blessed to be, you know, sitting beside him and to be able to learn from him like the rest of you do, and to be able to stand, you know, beside him in my own right as an authority in my own field as well. So that's my story from my perspective.
Yeah, thank you. So that's how Harmony and I met. I remember the ferry ride coming back from the island. We were with Ryan Lewis, and we were just sort of blue skying things about what was possible with nutrition, what was possible with really good supplementation. And I don't think we got talking about it at that time, but I have done a lot of work in that area. And one of the things that I've always noticed is there's people, and no matter what you would do for them, it was immaterial. You could give them the best supplements, you could give them the best drugs, you could give them the best treatments, you could send them to the best doctors. They just would not get well. And that led me to wonder what on earth is going on with these people that we're just not seeing. With all our science knowledge, with all our ability to test and run tests and x-ray and ultrasound and CAT scans and so on. And I know there's people that are watching this show that have been through the gamut of all the medical has to offer them, and they still don't have answers. And I was one of those people as well who didn't have the answers. And a friend of mine actually came and said to me, this is about 1999, came and said to me, Alan, you're really not nice to be around. You're really kind of a depressive person. And she was the kind of person that would come and tell you something like that because she thought she had a solution. She would never just leave you hanging and say, you're a washed up whatever and see you later. She said, you need to go to Phoenix and you need to meet some people there. And I did go to Phoenix. I met those people. I ended up going to school in Phoenix. It's where I took energy medicine. And that was really the beginning of the missing link for me, is to understand that every disease has an emotional component. There's not one disease that just falls out of the air and sort of smacks you in the head, except the flu or something you get from somebody. But chronic, long-term illness always has an emotional component. There is no exception to that rule. If you are chronically ill and you're not getting better, and supplements and so on, we're going to talk about weight loss and diet, we're going to talk about a lot of stuff tonight, you have to address the emotional component. So I did energy medicine, and when I met Harmony, she just latched onto glutathione, and it was the missing link for you in the healing of her brain. And
collagen and then the glutathione.
So all of a sudden I saw this, what I originally thought was just a really very pretty lady, and she is a very pretty lady. I saw her suddenly come alive, and this brain turned on, and the intelligence started to come through, and the intuitiveness started to come through. And in the last couple of years, she really focused on, she's taken Dr. Bradley Nelson's emotion code, certified in that, body code, and certified in that, and she's certified in clinical hypnotherapy, and really invested herself in understanding this emotional component that you need to address if you are going to get relief from a chronic ailment. And there's lots of people who don't want to go there. They don't want to do that, but I'm just going to tell you one weight loss story because we're going to talk about that tonight. But I was in a very big audience at an event, and there was a lady there, very overweight, very overweight. And it was a science conference, so we're talking about the science of all the things that you can do to lose weight. And this lady said, I've tried everything and nothing has ever worked. And fortunately, the person who was leading the conference is also not only a medical professional, but trained in energy medicine. And he just said to this lady, whatever happened to you that you wanted to layer yourself up like you have? What are you protecting yourself from? And she got really angry that he would even approach that topic, but after just a very short period of time, she kind of broke down. And then they had a private conversation and addressed the emotional issue that she had been protecting herself from for years. And then everything changed for her, completely changed within a very few months. She was losing weight. She was her whole life was different because somebody had the courage to approach her about the emotional event that was going on in her life. And that's what really Harmony and I have come together as a team. She has invested herself in the emotional component in helping people address and resolve the emotional issues. And I still continue to study in the component that I'm in. And I want to give people a word. Pharmacognosy. I have been a member of the American Society of Pharmacognosy for many years. You can go look up pharmacognosy. That is the lost art of medicine.
Spell it.
If you can spell it. Pharmacognosy is the lost art of medicine. It's what Hippocrates studied was pharmacognosy. It's what was taught until the 1920s in America. Pharmacognosy was what was taught to people. And then in the 1920s, some changes in Congress were made in the United States, which opened the door for the pharmaceutical industry and has completely changed our life and our thinking about ourselves. The pharmaceutical industry has completely changed our thinking about ourselves. They took all of the pharmacognosy teachings out of the universities. They cut any nutritional training for doctors down to minimal standards. 4 hours is the basic training, 8 hours if you're at a really great university. They just took it out of the curriculum altogether, and they tried to get it out of people's awareness that there was this whole element of science that was being left out. And we adopted a philosophy in North America of a pill for every ill. And that's what pharmacy's been doing. It's trying to give you a pill for every ill. It doesn't mean it cures it, doesn't mean it takes care of it. It's to take your mind off of it. Now, there are some pills that do cure. There's a few of those, but they're very few. Compared to the broad spectrum of what I'm talking about here, I just want quick relief. I want to forget about it. I want my pain to go away. I want my life back. Please give me a pill for that. And so pharmacognosy is what I still belong to the American Society of Pharmacognosy. And that is the study of how nature together, plants, animals, how we as a species work together to create and continue the human life. It's a very, very interesting topic. And in that component, there's a very huge emotional component, which I totally look up to Harmony for. That's what she's invested in. That's what she does. She's an expert at it. She's a guru at it. And that's what brings us together is I have a scientific component. She has the emotional component. And together, the two of us offer something I don't think you find anywhere else in the world.
What's really interesting is the emotional component is actually based in science. Dr. George Goodheart, who was a chiropractor, actually founded kinesiology. He made a discovery when he was in session with a client. He exposed his client to something, and a muscle that was previously weak was all of a sudden way stronger, and he couldn't make sense of it. And through his own research, eventually kinesiology ended up being developed in 1970. So this research has been... Can I just
stop you for that for a second?
Yeah.
I think it's so amazing how the medical professions treat the chiropractic professions, and yet kinesiology came out of the chiropractic profession and is now taught in medical schools. You can get your degree, you can get your bachelor in kinesiology. They latched onto that. They've made it into a career.
It is. That modality in itself is a career path.
Absolutely.
And is very respected.
Absolutely.
So I play with that field right there, kinesiology, basically to be able to communicate with the mind and the body. And this is what Dr. Bradley Nelson created, who also is a chiropractor. So he found himself in the first 20 years or so that he was practicing, that 90% of the time when people would come in complaining about pain, it was emotionally charged. It was related to some type of emotion or trauma. And he eventually figured out he needed to do something because cracking things wasn't fixing it. They just kept coming back over and over and over again. And he didn't want to create a codependent relationship with his clients. He wanted to give them relief. And so what he did was he used what's called the governing meridian, which governs our whole energy body. It starts at our chin, it goes all the way up and then down the spine to the tailbone. The governing meridian basically controls the whole energy body, as I said. So what he would do is he would use kinesiology, founded by science, to communicate with the body, to source the spot in the body, call it here, that's carrying hurt, right? And then what he would do is he would use a magnet, which basically magnified his intention to support the person in releasing that hurt right here in the energy body, roll that down the governing meridian, and for some magical reason, the person would just shoot the energy out the window. It would no longer be in their energy body anymore. And then miraculously, they would no longer be in pain. Just using a magnet rolling down the governing meridian. So you call out the emotion, you play with the magnet, get a nice little massage, and then done.
Yeah, I just want to mention this. I go to a really unique clinic here. I actually have private health care. So for you people in the United States, there is such a thing in Canada. There is public health care, which is not free. We pay every month for that. It's inexpensive compared to the United States. Very inexpensive. Like you would not even believe. $75 for Dawn and I per month for our doctor, whatever. So it's really, really inexpensive, and we greatly appreciate it. I also have private health care that I pay for independently. And in that particular clinic that I go to, they also employ kinesiologists and a clinical hypnotherapist for chronic pain. Because opioids, as we all know, opioids are not doing the job. They're killing people. 173 people a day in the United States alone. 173 people a day die from an opioid overdose in the United States. It's almost...
and statin drugs are another one as well.
So that's...
I just posted an article actually on Glutathione Authority recently about statin drugs that Dr. Marcola had posted. It's amazing.
It's amazing. So what we wanted to do tonight for sure is talk about why our relationship is so integrative. It's so close because of my energy medicine practice, because of your energy medicine experience, or your energy practice experience, and then bringing supplementation into that. And so we want to talk about some product. We want to talk about...
Not yet. I wanted to connect Emotion Code, Body Code to help people to understand. I just wanted you to understand that this is most definitely founded in science. This isn't woo juju. That's my own word. Right. Don't look it up.
Yeah. It's right underneath pharmacognosy.
Yeah, exactly. But it's really important for you guys to understand that if you find somebody or yourself who's carrying a physical barrier, this is what I call weight. It's a physical barrier because typically somebody that is carrying that, there is some type of a trauma that's in there. And so we create that physical barrier that will make us safe so that we can't be harmed again, right?
Right.
That's emotionally charged. So I can take this, I can take other weight loss things and stuff, and this might do the job, but you're going to lose the weight, and then guess what? As soon as you're finished losing it, you're going to go find it again because you always want to find the things you lose. And the thing that created the physical barrier in the first place is still there.
Right. Yeah.
So I want you to really understand that we are here to support you guys in creating a holistic vision of health. We want to talk about really, really loving and honoring the body that we have. And how we do that is by understanding the language of the mind and the body. And this is what I specialize in, is supporting people in communicating with their mind and their body so that they can see what it is that's not servicing them and release it. And then once the emotion of the trauma and the things that you've gone through is released, then you can release the weight. We're releasing the emotions, we're releasing the weight, and we're not going to find it again because we didn't lose it. We actively released it.
Let it go. Right.
So this is the main cause for yo-yo dieting. If you purely focus on the physical body and you try all of these different diets, you will have success, but you will actively go and find the weight again because the fear of possibly being harmed or whatever it is still there. So you're going to keep the physical, or you're going to put the physical barrier back on. So I really want you to think about just honoring the fact that there is an energy body. We know, and I've gone over this before, that science now understands that a cell, an atom, is just vibing energy. It's 99.999% vibing energy. This physical body, right, that's hard, it's just vibing energy, which means that when we experience things, it causes our body to vibe differently. So we need to honor that. And it's actually, there's a clinic that is here in Vancouver, and they've got clinics all over the place. What this clinic does is it actually measures how the brain and each section of the brain is vibrating. And they know how each section of the brain is supposed to be vibrating, and then they actually get it back to its proper vibration so it can function properly. So science understands this. It is scientifically proven. Now it's time for us to get on board and realize that this stuff that was once woo-woo juju and only practiced by gypsies and witches who are burned and stuff like that, is actually now proven science. And if you want to be holistically healthy and create longevity in your weight release, not weight loss, then if there is anything in particular that needs to be sourced emotionally, source that first, chuck it out the window so it's no longer causing you problems anymore, then use the amazing product that's going to support you in being able to release that barrier, because you no longer need it anymore. And you can have that beautiful body in its prime. We actually just saw this amazing poster, those big, huge, billboards and stuff like that. Yeah. And it said, your body is meant to heal. And we were like, oh, yay, somebody else knows. Yay, now there's three of us. I'm sure you guys are all on board too. It's really fantastic. But Alan, I'd really like you to speak to, what you can do from your perspective to really honor your body holistically.
Well, my philosophy was born out of frustration, literally, with the pharmacy. Just in the fact that pharmacy never encourages anybody to address the root problem. And then they give you something that often interrupts a process that's going on. So when you take a statin drug, for instance, that's going to block the production of cholesterol, well, you need cholesterol in your body. Ladies, you need cholesterol to create estrogen and progesterone and other hormones. Men, you need cholesterol to create testosterone and other hormones in our body. So we begin to mess around with the endocrine system because we think, well, this is out of sorts. We need to push that down. So we get a drug to do that, and it does it somewhere in the pathway, and it interrupts a lot of other things in the body, which that's where side effects come from in medicine, is this interruption of the pattern. I was really frustrated with that, and I wanted to find ways and means for us to work with the natural processes of the body. So finding out how our immune system actually conducts its business and encouraging that, giving it the supplementation to encourage that, finding out how our body actually physically puts weight on and where it puts it, and then encouraging the process, the natural process by which we would release that weight. You deal with the energy, but in my practice, that's what my study has been in the last 3 decades, literally, is what can we do to encourage our body in a system that is obviously showing up that it's not working at its prime? What can we do, not to cover it over and mask it, but what can we do to make it function at its prime again? How can we optimize our immune system? How can we optimize our fat release system? How can we optimize our cognition? How can we optimize these systems that are in place in our body, because our body is meant to heal? How can we do that? And then when you take the emotional blocks out of the way of those systems, imagine how good you could feel if the emotion was all gone, you didn't hold anything about anything anymore, the trauma is gone, and your body just started to function. And it started to heal itself. It does heal itself. You think about just getting a simple paper cut on your finger. You never think about healing it.
No, you just think about how much it stings.
Exactly, right?
Paper cuts are the worst.
Or you think about, man, I did not know I used my finger that much.
Yeah.
But yeah, you never think about...
But you know it's going to heal.
You know it's going to heal, right? Well, why isn't this the same for the rest of our body? It is the same for the rest of our body, except that we have blocked that. We have literally got in the way of what the body wants to do with our emotions, with past traumas, with things that have gone on in our life.
With sugar.
With sugar. Sugar is a great one to block things in our body. And then drugs do too.
Stress, which is emotional.
Stress.
That's the one big one we all accept, right?
That's right. And I want to just say something about, because you were talking about, how things develop with Dr. Bradley Nelson and so on. And Wuju Juju. Listen, I'm going to tell you right now that the things that they think cause things today, that's not going to be the truth 5 years from now. If you look back in the medical profession at the things we thought caused whatever 10 years ago, 15 years ago, or 20 years ago, remember in the 1940s and 1950s, if you were a lady suffering from anxiety, the doctor would tell you to smoke cigarettes. Yes, they would. They would actually tell you to smoke cigarettes because nicotine would calm your nerves.
Yeah, that's true.
So it was medically supported.
Yeah.
You know, you can't go to the doctor now. They're not going to tell you to smoke cigarettes. So just remember that in the area of science, we are learning so much. We're evolving so much. But in the area of energy, we are as well. And what's happening is the two are finally coming together. After many, many years apart, they kind of split about 1850, somewhere in there. They got really, really wide apart by Congress in the 1920s. Actually, 1911 was when they passed the law, and an act in 1920, whereby medical students were not allowed to study energy. They were not allowed to study nutrition. They were not allowed to study those things. So we had this huge division, and thankfully, you know, just 100 years later, a century later, wow, we get to come back together and start to practice like we did. You mentioned witches and stuff, but you know, with the idea that there's more to us than just our physicality. And there is. Everyone knows
And
that.
for a long time, the people that were playing in that arena were gypsies and witches and, you know, like hippies, and they were all outcasts.
Yeah.
You know, members in society who were not accepted for being legit. But I fortunately get to play in a space where what I'm practicing is very much founded in science and respected. And I feel really, you know, great to be practicing in a space where I'm not, you know, said to be a witch. That being said, when I went to Ireland, the boys there called me a witch, which is really funny, but they weren't trying to burn me. So I still live in a time when it's okay to be a witch.
I remember in 2005, August of 2005, the long weekend of August, we have one in Canada. You might not have it in the United States. We have a long weekend in August in Canada. And Dawn and I took that long weekend. Dawn is my wife. That's the person that you never see, but she actually exists. And we went to a conference. It was held here at Simon Fraser University. And we remember it really well because it was summertime, so the university was actually closed, but they opened up one of the auditoriums for this conference with no air conditioning, and it was very uncomfortable for people, except me, because I love the heat. But we had a 4-day conference in there, and we had unbelievable world experts come and speak to us about Dr. Fred Allen Wolf, they're just these people that were incredible people who have devoted their life to studying medicine, energy, you name it, quantum physics, etc., etc. So a whole full 4 days of integrative medical scientific proof. How much scientific proof? Now, what's interesting about this is in that whole audience, there was actually some members of the Canadian government who actually, I'm going to say monitor the release of drugs and nutritional, and one of them made the comment of how surprised they were at how much solid scientific research there is to support the whole idea of our body as an energy body and our body as a physical body. Because it was just taken out of the curriculum, that's all. People just weren't taught that. It was just taken out of the curriculum, and so then when you started to talk about it, because the experts in the field were not educated, they would defend themselves and tell you you're crazy. That's all that happened. That's all that happened. I have deep, deep respect for the medical profession. They're some of the most intelligent people on the planet. But you can't teach what you don't know. And the problem is you don't know what you don't know until you start to investigate. And our body is literally meant to heal itself. And so that's...
I want to really quickly touch base on some amazing comments that are coming in. The first one from Mary Lou Westcott. We know that she's had an amazing journey.
Yes.
An amazing journey. You are a fantastic example. And what's really, really amazing, and I really appreciate you sharing this, she said, I had a long history of ups and downs. I had to figure out what my real issues were. Very necessary. This is what she says. I lost 100 pounds and gained it back 3 times.
Mary.
That's amazing, Mary. And like that just shows you she lost it and then found it again 3 times.
Yeah.
So she said, what you're saying is 100% truth. So she said she had to do the brain work. She messaged earlier and said, my physical outcome has been directly related to the head work I've done. So that's a very simple way of putting it. And Tanya, she said, Tanya Rose Demicelli, she says, but they are going to tell you to take antidepressant drugs instead of trying to see why it is that you're depressed. And I've seen that a lot of times. You're totally right. And I'm not here to tell my clients that are coming to see me to do the healing work to get off of their antidepressants once they're already on medication. But I am absolutely here to do the work to get the stuff out of the way that's causing the depression. And if at that point they're feeling fantastic and they can't feel anything but fantastic, and they go back to their doctor and say, I'm feeling amazing and I've been feeling amazing for a while now, so if you want to lift that prescription, feel free to get rid of it, you know, because that's typically what ends up happening. So it's an amazing thing that you're saying there. And Tanya says, good for you, we can control it. Yes, you may need help, but there are many things you can do before getting into drugs that actually are addictive and can kill you in the long term. It's really fascinating because there's one particular client that was medicated in her teenage years, and she feels like she really actually kind of lost her teenage years, and then ended up getting into what she would call recreational drugs later on, and she absolutely blames the time that she was medicated with prescription drugs in her teenage years because of the dependent relationship. She said she got used to being out of her body as a result of the drugs that she was in. And I found it really interesting because this is the first time that I've had the pleasure of working with somebody who's been down this path, and she's teaching me so much. And she said, once you get used to being outside of your body as a result of prescription drugs, then you go seeking other things that are going to help you get outside of your body when you don't have access to that anymore. So I'm not going to tell you for 2 seconds that modern medicine doesn't have its place.
No, for sure.
But I am going to tell you to be incredibly mindful of when you're choosing to do it. And if there's something emotional, one of my clients was looking extremely bipolar and looking like she had serious psychosis when she came in. But I knew that that wasn't what was going on. And as soon as we started to do the work, we saw amazing results in her moods balancing and her feeling calm and relaxed, and those like extreme emotional waves and stuff like that. Like it's just amazing how balancing that work can be, and how in the long run it ends up turning out that maybe those mind-altering prescriptions aren't really needed so much. But again, not a doctor, not here to claim any of that. You know what I mean? I'm just here to do the support from the emotional standpoint. And if they go back to their doctor and the doctor changes their mind about things, then that's absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate all the comments that are coming from you guys, because they're so proactive. We're preaching to the choir. You guys get it.
I was just going to say that. I'm sitting here getting so excited because Mary Lou Westcott, you are like the best. Your journey is, if people would really read your testimony about, first of all, it's not a 3-month journey. And I just so wanted to touch base on this tonight, because True Keto has been on the market for 2.5 weeks or maybe 3 weeks, whatever it is, depending on where you lived and when you got it. And I'm already getting texts from people, you know, well, I lost 5 pounds, but it's not working anymore. Holy moly, stop it. You did not gain that weight in 3 weeks. You gained it over a lifetime and over a period of time. And if you would go and read somebody like Mary Lou Westcott's testimony of her journey, this is a journey to change and take your life back.
Yep.
From the emotion, from the trauma, from the things that were making you do what you're doing, even though you knew it wasn't good for you, you couldn't stop. And Mary has done that. She's done the head work. And that's really this is what stimulated our conversation tonight, is I was expressing some frustration to Harmony about, you know, these texts that I'm getting from people that, you know, I've been 5 days, I've been, you know, a week or 10 days or something, or I took 1 dose of the product and I had all these, you can't believe what some people have said that has happened in their body with 1 dose. Impossible. Completely impossible. But anyway, they had an experience, so you can't downplay their experience. You have to do some brain work. You have to do some head work here. you have to start seeing yourself as the person you want to be, not the person you're seeing in the mirror. You have to start seeing yourself in a different light, as a healthy, holistic, happy, functioning person. If you're constantly talking to yourself about how bad you are, how bad things are, how all those kinds of things, you don't have a chance. You just do not have a chance. And that's literally where Harmony has been so incredible in our relationship together as well, is in calling me out when I get too sciencey. Seriously, I get too sciencey, and she go, well, hey, hold on here a minute. What about, talking to people about their energy? What about talking to them about their head? What's going on in their head? How are they talking to themselves? Dr. Shad Helmstetter wrote a book, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. Great gentleman, Dr. Shad Helmstetter. Great gentleman. Years and years ago, another guy wrote a book called Psycho-Cybernetics. He was a plastic surgeon, and he noticed that even though he was doing incredible surgery, people were still suffering as if he'd never done the surgery. And he wrote a whole book about how that the trauma that they had not left them. And even though the scars were gone, they still felt scarred and bad.
They still carried the energy of it.
They still carried the energy. So,
yeah.
So we want you to succeed. The reason we're doing this tonight and talking to you like we can, because we love you and you know we love you, is because we want you to succeed. We want you to get the best out of everything that we do. True Keto is a fabulous product. It is a fabulous product that works with the natural ketogenesis of your body. It's a fabulous product. It's going to help. There's no question. All the products that are sitting in front, immunity is a fabulous, that I'm drinking, a fabulous product that is going to encourage your immune system to be optimal. Those are fabulous things, and they all have great, I mean, you can read people who have tremendous results. Where we see really great results is in kids. You know why? Because kids often don't have the emotional constraints that we as adults have put upon ourselves because of our traumas and things we don't want to happen again. We've got a study going on in autism right now with immunity and autism, and these kids are changing dramatically. They're just whoof, because we're making brain connections. They're optimizing their immune system, and it's helping their brain reconnect and all that, like you experienced, right, with glutathione.
Yeah.
So that's necessary. And then now they're seeing that when that's happened, now they're seeing that they can take on this emotional work. Their behavior is changing. I'm just so excited right now, I can hardly talk. Because all these kids, I mean, kids are just, I love kids, and just get the messages from the parents about how their kids have changed. You cannot believe how many times I've had to just sit down and have a cry because somebody's life, their family's completely changed because of a product sitting on this table.
It's really important, I think, for both of us to highlight our own journeys to show that we are an example of holistic health. I want you guys to understand that both Alan and I have walked a path of holistic health to get to where we are right now. So I tell my journey of what it was like to suffer a physical concussion. But before that, I suffered from being born to a mother who could not unconditionally love me because she was severely abused her whole childhood.
She didn't want you.
And she didn't want me, and she treated me horribly my whole childhood. She was jealous, and she was in competition with me and my whole childhood.
Your whole life. Let's just put that out.
We don't really talk much anymore. And my father was, depressed and suicidal. So he was a ghost of a father. And what's really interesting is I want you guys to understand that I don't tell this story from a place of woe is me. I can talk about this with no emotion involved because I've done the work. And when Alan met me, my son wasn't living with me because my mother convinced him to leave me, and he was living with my mom for 2 years and 3 months. And so in all of the emotional stuff that I had to deal with, there was also then this concussion. And I truly believe that the accident happened for a reason because it forced me into a cocoon where I was able to do the work that I needed to do physically, psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually in order to be able to come out the other side and be where I'm at right now. So I had to do the healing work. I had to let my brain heal, and then when it did heal, I was able to learn all sorts of amazing new things that have put me where I'm at. But understand that I became a hypnotherapist and an energy healer because I was in crisis myself, and I found it for survival. Because I thought I was an egg that was going to crack into a million pieces with a suicidal father in the hospital, my son not with me, my boyfriend's husband had liver cancer, was in the hospital in ICU, hooked up to all the machines. There was so much stuff going on in my life that I thought I was going to collapse myself. So I found this stuff to help me cope. And then I ended up getting out the other side and being where I am now. So when we talk about these, I want you to understand that the physical body is integral. Honor that. You've got to get the right nutrition in your body to optimize your physical body, which is here. But your psychological state and your spiritual state and your emotional state need to be honored and looked at and loved and cared for, just like your physical body is. And I've done all of that work over the last 5 years to be where I am right now. And Alan has done the same and can tell you his own story as well. So you have to look at all aspects and honor all aspects to be at your peak health.
Yeah, you do. And you know what's amazing in our society today is we literally are not given space to take care of ourselves. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to say this, in a broad sense, people are considered weak. They're a weak person if they need to take space. You know, in Europe, they just cut the work week in France down to 35 hours a week.
That's part-time.
In America, that is not even that's casual. That's casual.
Yeah.
I worked 100 to 120 hours a week owning my drugstores. And, you know, the only person who was driving that was me. But that's what I felt I had to do to succeed. That's what we're led to believe in our current society that we live in, that you've got to work hard, you've got to be out there, you've got to be pounding it, man, or you are not worth anything if you ain't pounding it. And what happens is we beat ourselves up really good. We beat ourselves up emotionally, we beat ourselves up physically, we try to make up somehow, and then we don't have the emotional strength to do anything but, I just got to go to the doctor and get some drugs or something. So what we want to, like you said, we're here to support.
They want to hear your story. It's your turn. They're like, we want to hear Alan's story.
Wow. Well,
what did you do to holistically heal yourself, Alan?
Well, I started off with.
Well, go back to the crisis, because you were actually you were getting there anyways, right? Yeah. So you were working 100 to 120 hours a week, running how many pharmacies? 3. 3 pharmacies. How many employees?
200.
And you were being pushed, right?
Pushed. We were trying to compete with a very big national chain. There was 35 of us that owned this group. And I opened myself up to a near fatal viral overload in my body. Very crazy how that all came about. That's the story in itself, how that came about. But literally, I had no immune system. And so I lost 33 pounds in less than 3 weeks. I was misdiagnosed as having cancer. They were going to start cancer treatment. I did actually attend a cancer clinic in Calgary for a year when we were there. Just bizarre stuff that went on. And ultimately it turned out that there was no answers. There was no answer except, you know, we've had this viral overload. I went into hepatic failure, liver failure, kidney failure, renal and hepatic failure. And there was no answers. And literally, I remember the day when the doctor was talking to Donna. You know, we have a couple little kids. The doctor was talking to Donna and he said, well, the best thing I can tell you is keep both fingers crossed. Right? That was the answer to the what was going on. So keep both fingers crossed. And it's crazy. Literally, when I was 47 years old, the only thing I could do, I would get up every day. I don't know why, but I'd just go downstairs in our house and I would lay in front of our fireplace. I had no energy to do anything else. And fortunately, I have a really great family, son and a daughter, who were very supportive. Our son came home, and you know, he had some really cool things to say to his dad, which actually made me start to search. Like, who has the answer? I went and sat across from my doctor, You know, I was losing function. I had no tweezer response. I could not do this. When I was 47, I could not lift a glass to my mouth. I couldn't drink out of a straw. One day my left arm would work, next day it wouldn't. Someday my right arm would not work. I had all sorts of emotional problems. Just because you're just losing. And no one has any answers for you. So I decided, I remember sitting across from my doctor and saying, look, what are we going to do? And he wanted to send me to a psychiatric rheumatologist because I was in severe pain. And I went like, so you think I'm crazy? And he's like, no, I didn't say that. I said, well...
I heard psychiatry in there.
The challenge...
Isn't that for people who are psycho?
Yeah, right? So I said to him, the challenge with that is I'm going to go see another doctor who's going to give me another 4 prescriptions to go on top of the 9 I already have. What is that going to do? Like, this is not working. And so I cold turkeyed all my meds. I went through the DTs.
Oh, yeah.
Which was an incredible story of sitting for 3 days, sweating, shaking, on fire as I detoxed from all the prescription meds that I was on. I don't encourage people to do that, to just cold turkey all their meds.
But
when you're alone by
so.
yourself. Well, Donna was there. I actually called her to. I thought I was really going to lose it, and I called her to take me to the hospital. And she came out because I was hearing voices and seeing lights and crazy sounds and all that kind of stuff. So she came actually to get the car to take me to the hospital. She came back in the house and she said, we can't leave because there's a whole bunch of cops. There's helicopters over our street. There's SWAT teams outside. They're actually busting a drug house 2 doors down from us. So
you weren't hallucinating.
I wasn't hallucinating. Which I thought I was. And so yeah, I went through that. I went through the DTs. I've been there, done that. That's not nice. It's not pretty. Any of you that have had to do AA or NA, one of those programs, I entirely get you. It's not pretty. It's totally worth it. It's not pretty. And the reason that we're there in the first place is nobody has the answers for us. That's the reason we're there. We don't have the answers and nobody else does. We feel weak. We feel worthless. And so we take up alcohol, drugs, or whatever it is. That was me. And I just lost it on my doctor. I said, no, that's not, look, all that's happened here is we don't know. I don't know with all my education, and you don't know with your education, and the fact that you're going to be the president of the Canadian Medical Association. It's immaterial. We don't know what's wrong, and somebody does. And his answer was beautiful. I love this man for his answer. He said, Alan, after he got angry at me, though, he was really angry.
After he got his ego out of the way.
Yeah. He did, and he said, you know what can I do to support you? And so I had an open lab request at the hospital in the little town where we lived. I could go there anytime and have labs done, blood drawn. I could go to ER and be admitted anytime I wanted. And for 5 years, he and I worked together. And in that time, I studied my immune system. I was a guinea pig for tons and tons of different natural remedies and modalities and things, and out of that has come, my glutathione experience, which was the thing that saved my life, saved many people's lives, but it saved my life, could possibly save somebody else's life, and then just all these other things that have come about because of that. But everybody has to make that decision. That's the decision you made. That's the decision I made. The decision that you have to make as an individual is, my life isn't working as it's happening right now, and I've got to take it back.
But above and beyond the medical.
I've got to get answers, and I'm not getting them from the people who should have, or that I've been led to believe that should have them. I'm not getting them. One of the reasons that in 2014, August 25th of 2014 is the last day I walked out of a drugstore. And I left there, and I made a decision 25 feet from the drugstore that I was never going to dispense another drug to another person in any part of my life ever again, because it's so deceptive. It's just so deceptive. Now, there's times when drugs are needed. Go with that. Trauma, emergency, etc. But to treat chronic illness that way, as the only way, it does not work. It just does not work. We've proven it. We have thousands of people. As a class study, if you want, when the doctor says there's no proof, just look around you. The proof is everywhere that treating it in one single does not work. Medicine alone does not work. It needs all these other modalities. Your body needs support. You need to change your mind about yourself. You need to first make a decision that you're going to be a different person and you're going to go through whatever it takes to get there. And that's what I did. I had my family support me. We've had Harmony support me. It's been wonderful. I so love and appreciate this girl for the support that she's given me. My family supported me. Other people have supported me. And to be able to, without ego, and I hope anybody that's ever heard me speak, I think that's one of the things, I've been there. I don't have an ego about it. If you're hurting, you're hurting. There's no point to have an ego about it. You need help, you need help. I was the guy. I remember embarrassing my family tremendously at a big festive event one time. I was the guy that knocked over the table. I was the guy that spilled all the water. I was the guy that made the big mess.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I was the guy who did that.
And you weren't 80.
I was not 80. I still remember this spot very clearly. And I was the guy that did that. And,
but what's amazing to look
help.
at is the reason that you got there in the first place is because of what you were trying to do and how you were pushing yourself just so that somebody would tell you were worth something.
Absolutely. That was it. Yeah. I was working 100 to 120 hours a week, hoping that somebody would come along and go, wow, you are awesome.
And how long does that feeling last? If somebody did it, if one person did it, if 100 people did it, how long does that feeling last?
It doesn't last because it's you. You're not happy with it.